Ooh, are we on?
We are on and recording. How are you, Brittany?
God, I'm doing well. How are you?
I am good. We are here, episode one, Pop of Pop Culture, but also recapping the Grammys.
Yeah, I mean, listen, first of all, let's get into just how this project came about because we've been having this project in the works for like a year and a half. And the way that I know that is because I think back to our coordinator at work. We've been through two coordinators since then, and we're finally
Literally.
launching this project. So it's been definitely a long time coming. And then basically the way it came about was the Golden Globes happened, and I'm like, let's pull the trigger for the Grammys because I love like the music award show. So I'm like, let's pull the
Yeah.
trigger, let's do it. And so we are here.
We are officially here. And like you mentioned, I think we both also bring our own expertise into play. Obviously, like in that year and a half since this convo first started, we both have continued to grind, put in the work, obviously with our own interests with pop culture, fashion, entertainment, and just in general reporting as well, like our day jobs in a sense. And so just to give the listeners a little overview, I guess, we did go live on social, sharing a little bit about our work. But my name is Jonathan Calixto, and I am a multimedia journalist, also freelance editor, reporter, and host. So a little bit of everything, but born and raised in the Bronx, always loved entertainment, from Ryan Seacrest days, to Zuri Hall. So it's fun to now be able to take that passion and do something like this, recapping the Grammys with none other than Brittany.
I know. Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Skyler, and I feel like I could just reiterate Jonathan's bio. Born and raised in the Bronx, a Latina in media. I've been a multimedia journalist. I've been an editor, a freelancer as well, a host. I think coming up on 4-ish years now. So still kind of new, still getting my little angel wings in the business. But I like to say that you and I make like two halves of a whole mainstream professional. So
100%. And fun fact, we're both August 17 Leos. So,
that's right. We're birthday twins. It's funny when I was doing all the admin for this work, I was like, well, it's perfect because we share the same birthday. You know, when they ask for your birthday on everything, I was like, oh, this is perfect.
so there is that, guys. If you know horoscope signs and all that good stuff, drop it in. What do you think about an August 17 Leo? But at that, yeah, let's talk all things Grammys.
Tell me, what, just overall in a nutshell, how did you feel about last night's show?
Okay, the first thing is it's so long. And yes, we know this. There are performers. Also last night was very special with the philanthropic side, obviously after the California fires. But I think it was super lengthy. I could have done with certain performances not being there, or certain moments. But all in all, I think I will say, how do I sum it up? I would say new generation. And by that, I mean, I think we saw a lot of the faces that we are seeing now on social media hit the stage. So it felt like in a sense, this award show was kind of catering to that newer generation and introducing us to artists, obviously, that we know, coming out with new music and whatnot. But I would say it definitely took like a new wave for me. How did you feel about it?
I will say I think this was one of the better shows within the past few years. I will say that because like I mentioned, the music award shows are always my favorites, like the VMAs, AMAs, Billboard, the Grammys, of course, because I think music is like where most of my expertise lies. And with that, it has definitely been one of my more favorite shows. And I don't know, it could be the fact that number one, things felt a little bit more unified with, like you mentioned, with the LA fires. This was turned into basically a telethon. And not to get too deep into it, but I think also just with the state of our country right now, I think everybody was very unified and showed a unified front. So I think that's one reason why. And it's so funny because all over Twitter, people were like, "This was one of the better Grammys. What do we have? Like, we're waiting for like another shoe to drop because the Grammys were just too good and just too many people enjoyed it." So definitely one of the better favorites. It definitely was long. Absolutely. I think we got to like 10:30 and they announced like all the awards and the performance they had coming up. I'm like, I'm ready to go to bed.
I know, poor Charlie XCX was waiting, and
Hmm.
it was already 11:30, and they're like, "Yeah, we have this award, and then she's performing." I'm like, "Let the girl perform!" Like she's been
I
waiting all
know.
night.
It's one of those that they always go over. Like it's to be expected. So when they say 11:30, they don't mean 11:30. But I will say in past years, by like 9:30 ish, 10 o'clock, I'm like, okay. Like I'll like start reclining the chair back, start scrolling. I was genuinely watching the show and I was genuinely into it. So definitely one of the better Grammys that we've had in the past few years.
Yeah, 100%. And I think to your point of what you were saying, obviously it is a long show. And for viewers who tune in, usually some of them start at the 8 p.m. Eastern time, went on to like almost midnight. But for us, we were even texting a little bit about Grammy Day. We started at red carpet pre show even time. So I
Right.
know there was a lot of red carpet moments that were happening, even things that people didn't get to see on TV. Brittany, any favorite moments from the red carpet?
Ooh, I have red carpet favorites in terms of outfits. I will say just quickly, we did see two things on the red carpet that happened that weren't the best. Number one, we saw Kanye West and his wife be escorted off the carpet, which that was weird because I remember seeing like on Instagram they were there, they were taking pictures, and then next thing I know they were escorted off the carpet. I was like, oh, okay,
Yeah, like where
okay.
were you? What
Where
happened?
were you? And like I still feel like Kanye is still invited to these things in the music industry. I definitely, even though he has caused a lot of controversy, I do think he's still invited. He's still welcomed into certain spaces. So to hear that he was escorted out was actually really, really interesting to me.
Yeah, and I also mean I feel like we obviously haven't seen him so much at award shows, I would say
Hmm.
recently. So like to see him obviously make a presence, amazing. Obviously he is a part of music history in general, especially when you also talk about it in LA where he has lived for some time as well,
Right.
and obviously we know him in that whole scene. But I will say what felt so weird to me, and I guess when we talk about like red carpet fashion moments, was him and his wife showing up and just her outfit or lack thereof in a sense. I was just
Hmm.
like, what is going on? Time and place for everything. And I just felt like I wish he would have just came with her and just would have had like a good evening, fashionable, and just enjoy in the mix of everything. Granted, he wasn't invited like we heard and he was escorted out. But I feel like to make that statement, I just was like, time and place. It was not the time or place.
Yeah, and I think this is just a pattern that we see with the two of them and her outfits in particular. I mean, listen, if you, she got a banging body. I
Yes.
will not deny that. Like, listen, girl, if you got it, flaunt it. But I do think there is, like you said, a time and place to flaunt it and to not flaunt it. And I don't think the Grammys red carpet was the time to walk out in a little nude stocking. But that's just me.
Yeah, and I am here with you on that one. I think the second moment that we are talking about that people did not get to see is definitely the little bit of shade that was thrown to Babyface. Literally, it was AP News was obviously interviewing him on the carpet, and then for people obviously who didn't see it or maybe are starting to see it on Twitter, he was being interviewed by two people on the red carpet. AP News was the outlet, and then Chappell Roan was in the back, obviously glamorous and all. But the reporter then goes like, Chappell, Chappell, and like he's like, do you want this interview? Like, do you want to just go do that one? And they were like, yeah, and he scurried on.
It's funny because I was really debating back and forth whether this was something we should talk about or not. But I figured this is both our line of work. We're both red carpet reporters and correspondents. And so, I mean, I was just at one on Thursday and I didn't run into the same incident, but I was interviewing somebody and then somebody else who I wanted was walking by. But there's a way that you handle it. And because of course there were people on social media that it's like, oh well, Chaperone would have gotten them more views. First and foremost, Babyface is a legend in the music
Yeah.
industry. He is an icon. So to say that one is higher than the other, don't get me wrong, Chaperone is paving her own way, but let's not forget about the people who came before everybody else, you know?
Right.
And so I just felt like it wasn't handled the best. You know, if you wanted an interview, that's fine. Let him finish the question, say thank you, and keep it moving. I don't think you sit there. I think that was what got it, was just watching, her call Chapel as he's trying to answer the question. And it wasn't even like sly. Like, it wasn't like, listen, we both been on carpets.
Yeah.
Like when you're like making eye contact with the person, hoping they look back at you, you're like waving a finger, whatever. But to just blatantly call somebody while they're doing an interview with somebody else truly was just disrespectful. And then to watch, and he was very gracious about it.
He
I don't.
was so
He
nice.
was very gracious. I don't know that other artists would have done the same, and I also can't say that I would have blamed other artists also because you're in the middle of this interview, you're being asked a question, and then it's like you're being pushed out for somebody else. It was just was handled very poorly. I know they did apologize in the end, but regardless, what happened happened, and I don't think that. Just take this as a future lesson to anybody who wants to work in this business, who's new to this. That is 101 how to not act.
Yes, and I think you brought up such a good point of like, it is something as journalists ourselves, as people who have been on carpets, we obviously aren't trying to shade our peers and people who obviously have an amazing career, but we have seen those inner workings of when there is so much happening around you, where there is someone in your ear, to still act a certain way, to just try to navigate the situation the best you can. And so I think we definitely, at least I would say, like, yeah, coming from that side of there's a way to manage it, and I guess that one, it just was so fast that I guess they didn't know how to handle it. But Babyface, you deserve all the interviews. If you want to come
Yeah.
and speak with Pop of Pop Culture, we will have you. We will speak with you. We won't
We
interrupt
will not
you.
interrupt you. I promise. Promise. But along, of course, the red carpet is the fashion to look forward to, and you are the fashion expert between the two of us. So I'm gonna let you start that off. Tell me, who were some of your favorite looks, least favorite looks?
Uh-oh, you're putting so much weight on my title right now because I'm not dressed for the fashion gods. I am dressed for winter in New York
It's
today.
okay, y'all. He's in school. He's a grad student. He's like at school right now, double teaming. It's fine.
Literally. But nonetheless, I think, yes, we did see a lot of good moments. I'm going to start with someone who I feel I'm curious to also get your take on it because we do vibe to this woman's music and stuff, but Sabrina Carpenter. I think she obviously gave us like three different looks last night, from her red carpet look, from her performance look, to even her look when she was receiving her award. And I think it was a total hit. She did not miss in any category. She knows the blues work for her. She knows the shimmer works with her blonde hair as well. And just, I don't know, she served it. And she served such an elegance that I think was like bringing back old school elegance, but in such a modern take as well. So she could do no wrong for me. What are your thoughts on her looks?
Sabrina Carpenter never misses. And I will say, if you looked at her red carpet looks way before, way back when in 2015, 2016, there were a few. But in this new era of her career, she is just, she's a Polly Pocket. She is a Brad Stahl. I love Sabrina Carpenter in the looks that she pulls. She, like you said, she knows what works for her. Her stylist knows what works for her, and that's what I really, really like. And it's funny because somebody else who I think really knows what works for them, and just with the history with the two of them, it's funny I'm gonna bring her up now, is Olivia Rodrigo.
Ooh.
She, again, gorgeous. And they even mentioned earlier on, they're like, she seems to pop out in the same silhouettes, in the same hairstyles. But to that, I'm going to say, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Because we also saw how upset people got at her two Met Gala looks. She did the one in which, one of my favorites, was the black lace bodysuit. And then there was the Audrey Hepburn kind of look. And both times people were like, ooh, that's not her, this, that, and the third. So now she pops up with something that's hers and that looks like her. And she looked stunning.
She did, and I was gonna say, I the first glimpse that I got on it was in TV, obviously, and we saw like her just arriving to the venue and whatnot, and I was like, okay, like, I mean, we only saw from like really waist up in a sense, but it was like such a close up shot that I was like, okay, it's very all right, like normal. But then there was a picture of her like just walking, and I was like, the silhouette, her look, everything was just so perfect and again effortless, which I loved. And I think, like you said, it works for her. She knows, her team knows what works for her, and to be in black as well, you got to do it right. And I think she definitely had a nice moment where she was also a presenter. She wasn't a performer, so she
Right.
wasn't trying to steal no one's spotlight, but in a sense she was very, I would say, on point for sure. I loved it. Another look I will say, just to go on that touch, I think someone who had an amazing night and also for me was a winner was Dochi in Tom Brown. I Every time I just see those stripes on the side of the arms, I know it is Tom Brown, and she did it. There's a way that you can always get repetitive with your suits and the structures and stuff like that, but she was, I don't know, she just looked so good with obviously like a dress infused with like the whole suiting vibe, and then obviously on stage she had a whole suit as well, then ripped it off and was in the undies and all good in Tom Brown. But yeah, I would say one of my favorite designers, how he does suitings, and then her to see it rock it and have such a good night, it was just the perfect combination for me.
Oh man, I am so excited to talk about her performance later on in the night. Oh my God, just speechless. And like you said, with everything between the carpet, the performance, getting the award, it really was her night. She was amazing. She was such a standout. Somebody else who we both had, well, I actually had this person on So-So, but I know this is like one of your favorites, Charlie XCX. I loved the gown, loved the gown, hated the boots. I couldn't do
You
the boots.
know,
I could not do the boots with the gown. Um, but she's beautiful. Like regardless of what she's gonna wear, she's gonna look beautiful in it. But just those two did not work for me.
you know that. Yes, I would agree. I think it could be a hit or miss. I just think for like a girly like Charlie XCS who doesn't care. I mean, we saw, and we'll talk about her performance. There was lingerie, thongs
Mhm.
everywhere, so she don't care. But what I loved about it, yes, the dress itself, John Paul Gaultier, just presented on in Fashion Week as well. So to see the access to be able to get something straight off the runway to wear, and then to personalize it and add your own touch, I feel like I was able to appreciate it. I do love the gray, which I think is something that we both share. That the gray itself, that color was so good on her in a sense. So yeah, I would say yes, we could do a little bit of editing, but I loved how she personalized that look, and I'm like, girl, you get tens for me
Oh
tonight.
yeah, she was beautiful.
Yeah.
Let's see, who do we have in So-So?
Ooh.
Ooh, okay. You mentioned Taylor Swift and Vivienne Westwood. No, I mentioned Taylor. Whoops.
Yeah.
Wrong colors. I will say this. I say So-So because Taylor is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Anything she's gonna it the I gotta watch what I say for this
The
to come for
Swifties.
us. This is only episode one. No, I will say this. In all aspects, Taylor Swift isn't like a top five for me, but that doesn't negate the fact that she's talented and she's gorgeous and she pulls great looks, but for me they just don't wow me. All of her looks always feel the same with the bangs and the hair and it just always feels the same back from her debut in what 2008 2009. It always just feels the same for me. I will say though, that T on her thigh, she just gave me an idea.
Oh.
Oh man, that I will say to me that was like the highlight of the outfit. That when I saw, I'm like, okay, I'm like, I see you, girl. Like she looked beautiful in the gown. Don't get me wrong. Or this was more of a mini dress. She looked beautiful in, but again, just like didn't shock me, didn't wow me. You know.
Yeah, and I will say, Swifty, she is in my top five, so we love her over here. But like you said, she just looks good in honestly, yes, whatever she puts on, but it is definitely is that wow factor, like how do you do it in a night like the Grammys where all eyes are on you as a musical artist? But I will say, yes, I did love the length of obviously like that dress was good, and I think like she always is showing her legs, she knows what she does. Something that she always is her staple as well as like a nice slit if anything, and so I feel like she worked to the things that work for her. And I love seeing her in red, so it made me think of Travis Kelsey a little bit, the Chiefs. So I'm like, girl, you are taking sports, music, everything, just combining it. So I don't know, I like her, but I agree with you. I think she would have been in my So-So for sure.
Yeah, I will say there was a lot of foreshadowing for the Super Bowl going on, not just with Taylor, but we'll get into that because that was a standout for me. But yeah, I liked her look better this year than I did last year. Last year I wasn't a fan at all, but this year it's like she looks beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful. Somebody who you had as So-So was Gracie Abrams because she wore Chanel. She was one of my favorites. I know she's getting a lot of flack on social media right now just for whatever. But she is a Chanel ambassador, and I think it looked very chic and very simple, but she pulled it off really nicely. Tell me, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, like I definitely agree. I think I was conflicted in the aspect of it was so for me felt a little basic, and I will say because of the color tones, and obviously we can expect this a little bit with Chanel. Obviously in this like kind of more like nudie, white, beigey, maybe creamy with a black, and so I felt like that combo it just for me didn't work. I will say the details on the actual outfit, love like the floral number, the veil, the combos of that great, but I was just like, it felt too effortless for me. I need like the fantasy to still be sold in your outfit, even as effortless as it is. And although she's a great ambassador, looks great in anything that she does put on as well. It just for me didn't like, it wasn't like a home run. I was like, there could have been a little bit more for me.
That makes sense. I will say, I think like you just mentioned the fantasy. For me, nobody's ever gonna top Ariana Grande's 2020 look and that gray bog.
Yes.
That did it for me. And then she changed into the emerald green, did it for me. So I definitely get where you're coming from. One of your, I didn't have a lot of least favorites. I think when it comes to fashion, it's just like okay, like you could still look good in the outfit, and I won't be like, okay, that was the least favorite. My one least favorite was Casey Musgraves. Why are we wearing an Old Navy tank top? Why? That was the tank top my mom used to make me put under my clothes.
It,
Like
like,
I just didn't
yeah.
get the tank top. I That was it. But I know you had two.
Yes. Ooh, let's see. Well, Casey was definitely my number three on that list. So I agree. I was like, girl, there's time and place, time and place. One of them, I mean, love her. I mean, the night was also about honoring her a little bit. Alicia Keys,
Hmm.
while love her work and everything, I just think the accessories were just making it too hard to appreciate the dress. So like that combo for me was just not it. The color tones of the gold and black, perfect. Love that combo. There were so many ways you can do that color combo, which I was looking at, and I see her in a lot of these like black and gold outfits or whatnot.
Hmm.
So I was just like, she's done it way better before. I thought the earring with like the corset a clash, and then I think even her getting up on stage to go receive her award, it was a little bit complicated with all that she was
Hmm.
doing. So I just was like, it wasn't a hit for me. And then the other one was Sierra Farrell, which I didn't necessarily see on the red carpet on TV, but I saw it in a few roundups, and I was like, oh, what is going on? She basically was a big winner in country music. Don't really know a lot about her, but I was just like, the outfit was just very Marie Antoinette, but just too much embellishment, bedazzled. Now I am one for bedazzle, but it was like too much. Like Taquita, too much. Take some things off. It was like not working for me. I don't know if you got to see those looks. What were your thoughts on those?
Well, first of all, I've seen your tuxedo collection. You like Bedazzle. But I will say, I didn't even really know this person. I looked them up, and all I saw was the thumbnail, and I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. I get it.
You're like,
I
quick.
will say, it almost reminded me a little bit of, because this person was one of my so-sos, was Chaperone. Now, the thing about Chaperone is, like, it works for her. Like, I wouldn't put that outfit on. And I think if anybody else, like this particular artist, had an outfit similar, I think that's why I hated it so much. But for Chaperone, it just works. It just works. I will say the princess cap when she went to go accept the award, that was
You're
and
like,
this
there's certain
chapel
things that
still
don't work.
works for chapel, but that was funny. I'm not gonna lie. Like when I was like, okay, girl. I will say I loved going back her VMA look where she had like the jeweled headpiece. That was gorgeous.
Okay, yes,
This one wasn't my favorite, but it just works for her. It's like Lady Gaga, right? And I
right.
know that's how like everybody is, kind of pinning Chaperone is like this generation's Lady Gaga. Would I put on a dress of meat? No, but she looked good in it. Like it worked for her. So again, it's something that works for Chapel, but like I wouldn't do it myself.
Yeah, and I will say too, I think in general when we talk about fashion, uh, there's so many good people, like you mentioned, a Chapel Roan, a Lady Gaga, who do really great theatrical pieces and sometimes costume-esque looks in a red carpet, and they're able to blend both worlds really, really nicely.
Hmm.
Um, Chapel wasn't my favorite necessarily on the red carpet or her acceptance speech look, but I loved her performance look, and I was like, "This is the Chapel I wanted to see all night." Very, I don't know. So there's certain ways, I guess, yes, like you mentioned, that you can do it. But
Hmm.
when we also talk about performances, Brittany, there was so many performances last night, and I know we had a roundup of some of our like favorites, least favorites,
Hmm.
or just in general moments. So what did you think of the performances last night?
Oh my God, these performances were so good. Again, much better in the years past. Like it was, we saw so many just amazing performers. We have to start off with, I know Billie Eilish was the first performer,
Yes.
and it was simple, but with her vocals, I don't want it. Well, first and foremost, Billie Eilish is somebody who's like gonna get up and start busting out 8 counts like some of the others did. She's not gonna do that, and that's fine. Um, Her vocals are just beautiful. Like I just sat there and it just felt euphoric watching her. She's a gorgeous performer. Her vocals are stunning, and you could sit there and just have her like in a black background and like a burlap sack, and like I'm gonna listen to her sing. Her vocals are insane.
Yeah, and her whole setup in general, like that she had. For me too, it's all about like the scene, setting the scene for me. And I
Hmm.
was like, I was here for the mountain bags. I was
Yeah.
here for the floral, the greenery. I don't know. It just, like you mentioned, it did bring me back into this whole ambiance in a sense, and I was able to just sit there and listen to her vocals. So yeah, so that fantasy for me was sold. Someone else, when we talk about an 8 count that I did not know could pull out an 8 count, was Miss Sabrina Carpenter. I was like, she was giving me tap dance, she was giving me curtsies and all this vibes, and we
Mhm.
saw her mix theater, comedy, dancing, like fashion as well, storytelling, everything into a performance. And I think I was like sold. That was, she should have been for me an opener, but
Yeah.
I loved having her in my first hour of the show for sure.
My cheeky queen. I love Sabrina Carpenter so, so, so much. And I think the thing with like Espresso is she has been performing Espresso for coming up on a year now. And every single time it's a different performance. And like you said, she blended the fashion, she had like her little showgirl moment. She did the tap break, she did the comedy, and it was very much an ode to her tour. Especially like with the little spotlight thing, whereas with her tour it's a little different with the microphone. But Sabrina Carpenter, and I said this on my Instagram, she is a performer, and I think she is the pop star. Like we have not seen a pop star like her in a hot minute. I think maybe since Ariana, truly.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I always say Ariana and Sabrina are my top two, and I think that's why, because they remind me so much of one another. We just not have seen a pop star like that, like get up and dance. I know Tate McRae is like slowly crawling towards the scene, and she's a beautiful dancer, but I'm still waiting like for her to have her breakout moment. I don't think she has been like climbing, but it's not there yet. So I'm not gonna say Tate McRae just yet. But somebody else who gave us all the theatrics was Chaperone. This
Yes.
performance, I loved it. And I will be very, very honest. I just got into Chaperone like towards the later half of 2024. And every time she's slated to perform on an award show, I'm like, okay, cool, but I'm never looking for her. And then I watch her performance and I'm like, I should have been looking for you this whole time. Again, with her VMA performance and the whole Joan of Arc thing. And then
Mhm.
last night with the sad clown and the rodeo, it was so good. And again, she did this on SNL too. When you get the crowd participation, you
Yes.
got them in the palm of your hands, and you saw like when she has them all sing the chorus with her, you heard that auditorium, and that just goes to show that Chapel is, again, the young girls are taking it this year.
Yeah, they definitely are. And we talk about bringing in the audience. Even I was at home doing like the pink pony and swaying my hands. I was like, oh, I'm sold on this choreo. I'm here for it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think she did an incredible, incredible job. Her vocals, top tier. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know. I feel like I also haven't heard a pop girly in a minute come out and like with the vocals like that. Obviously from our like icons that we know, like in Ariana Grande. So I
Right.
definitely enjoyed that. And then I think it also, the packages that were playing before these performances were so beautiful, telling, bringing us into their world a little bit. I am someone who, like you said, I haven't really seen too much Chapel Roan. I haven't listened to too much of her. And this package really was like, I was like, oh my God, like I have to see more interviews of her and how she talks about,
Mhm.
what she's been through. So I love that. Also loved, obviously, Sabrina Carpenter's package that happened as well before her performance. Another performances I would say that I enjoyed was this whole new artist medley that we saw. Starting with Benson Boone. I mean, hello, you do an outfit reveal. You're sitting next to J Lo. I'm like,
Right.
he's just winning in life right now. And then you land your backflip. Great until they
That's
got
his
to the
party
crotch.
trick.
Yeah, until they
That is
got to
like
the
his little
crotch.
party trick. But before we get into the best new artist, I do want to, and I don't know if you caught this, and this is when I'm like, I think the race for best new artist was between Chapel and Sabrina, because they were the only two to get video packages, and they were the only two to have standalone performances. Because what we're about to cover now is the entire best new artist section. So the moment I saw that, I was like, the race is between the two of them.
Yeah, which it did lead me to be like, how did the other artists feel about this? And
Mhm.
what were the, like, I guess, metrics for them deciding? I mean, granted, when we do hear about all these artists in that category, we do know that at Chapel Roan, they're like, they've become now household names in a sense that we refer to or that we know on social media and stuff. So, yeah, I was like, okay, they both got their own sections, these other people didn't. But nonetheless, I was like, that was the perfect recipe for these artists in this medley to shine because I think we didn't need too much of them, but just enough to like make us want to download their music, check them out more. So like they all I feel like had a nice moment to shine. Obviously we talked about Benson Boone, which went on to grab his crotch at
Love
the end,
him. I'm like such
and
a sucker for him. I don't know what it is, but that one song in particular was like one of my top played of the year. And then like I got into his other music, and I'm like, he reminds me a lot of like a Justin Bieber or Harry Styles. You know, like that soft boy ballad. It's something about him. And I know he came from American Idol, which, to be honest, we don't hear a lot about American Idol talents anymore. So it is refreshing to see somebody, you know, from the show kind of coming back and getting that. So that was really, really cool for him. But then he was followed up by Miss Doechii herself.
yeah,
That performance, I literally have no words for how amazing her performance was.
yeah,
I mean, first of all, when she's rapping and she's holding onto one leg and she's like on the platform, I'm like, oh girl, like you just sold me. It between the execution of the choreography, the costume change, the concept, everything. I mean, and again, you have to look at when the camera panned to the crowd.
yeah.
Everybody was screaming for her. All the artists. Billie Eilish was like, that was so good. You saw everybody screaming and cheering for her. SZA, I mean, insane. And like you say here, she is on the rise. I do think that had this been maybe a year later, the race would have been between Chapel, Sabrina, and her as well. Like if she had like another year to grow. Because one thing I do feel is she started to pick up steam towards the later half of 2024. And so it was still a little fresh, for lack of a better word. But I do think had she maybe started a little earlier, she started to pick up steam a little bit earlier, it would have been a very tight race between the three of them.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, like you mentioned, I mean, it was just her moment to shine, and she knew it, and she gave us all of the antics we love, from the character play to even being in the crowd and bringing the crowd in at the beginning, the outfit reveals, even a lot of like photo moments throughout her performance. I don't know. I was just like, that was my favorite performance of the night, and it was such a small snippet
Hmm.
of like where I'm like, oh my god, I need to see more. So I just think she's on the rise, and I'm like, people watch out. It was also beautiful. She had her mom with her, which we'll talk about favorite moments down the line as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, her night in general, loved it. Obviously, then after her, it was Teddy Swim's time, and then of course the medley continued with Teddy, Shabuzi, and Ray. Is that I honestly haven't heard.
I think it is Ray.
Okay,
I think it
which I
is.
haven't honestly heard too much about her, but I know like they were saying she's like your artist's favorite artist because she does a lot of songwriting. But last night she sold me. I added her to my playlist, and I'm like, I need the song. I need to hear her live because she was amazing live. And no shade, obviously, to Shabuzi, Teddy Swims, amazing songs. They were like on my top TikTok songs as well,
Mhm.
things that I enjoyed. But I just felt like, yeah, the ladies definitely held it down in the medley. So,
It
hot take.
was amazing. I mean, Shibuzi was really fun for me because I've heard that song and that's like my guilty pleasure, like song at a club or whatever. So that was really good. The energy was amazing. For Dance Moms fans, Cameron from like the last season danced with him, so that was really cool.
Oh.
Um, but yeah, and then we wrapped up the best new artist performance with Ray. Her vocals were insane. And then afterwards we did go into the tribute for Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars. That was such a beautiful tribute. I will say I definitely did get choked up earlier when they did show the devastation from the fire, and obviously it is something that our hearts are with LA, of course, and it's something that we've been looking at. But to really go in and see, I know there was one where I think it was somebody's parent, their urn was in the fire and they found part of it, and that was really really just devastating to watch. So I'm so glad again that the night they were able to turn it into a telethon, and we do know that they raised, I think it was $7 million just with the at-home viewers alone. So I definitely, a beautiful, beautiful performance. I do wonder if they maybe had Die with a Smile planned earlier. I'd assume so because it was nominated. But
Yeah.
to then, change the song and turn it into the tribute was beautiful. And I mean, Bruno Mars and Lady Gaga are amazing talents.
Iconic.
So,
Yeah. Like what a great collaborators. Um, Great set of artists. And yeah, I think it came at such a perfect time in the night as well, where like you mentioned, paying tribute obviously to what the whole night was about. But to do it with those two artists, I was like, it couldn't get any better than that. And
mhm.
yeah, I'm excited and I'm curious to see if they'll make more music because I felt like we need more from them together.
I hope
So.
so. I know he just did that new song, and I'm like, really? Okay.
I know,
Have
yeah.
you heard it?
Yes,
Yeah.
which I was like, remix right now, and then he just starts singing this other song, but I was
I'm
like,
like,
that's not
how do
it.
we go from Die with a Smile to that? Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
like many are saying, hot take, it might be his first L of his music history in a sense. But
And
I
one
know
with
the
all the
next,
hits he's had, I'll take it.
but I know the next performance that we saw was one of your
Uh,
favorites as well. So tell us about that.
it's funny because at first I was like, my top three performances are all women, and then this one came in. And I just have to set the scene for you because anybody who knows me knows I love The Weeknd. I mean, I shouldn't have been listening to him back when I was 11, but I was. But anyway, so I'm like, I grew up with him. But yeah, so for those who don't know, back in 2020, 2021, The Weeknd did decide to boycott the Grammys due to secret committees that were, I guess, I think it was something along the lines of like 9 specific people having the final say in who gets what award or who gets what nomination. So his album After Hours was snubbed for every single nomination, and I do think that it deserved at least 1 or 2 nominations. Heartless, Save Your Tears, those were Blinding Lights. I mean, hello,
Yeah.
one of the biggest songs of, I'd say, the year, and for it to be snubbed, so he boycotted the Grammys. And then the following year, when they scrapped those committees, they said, he was like, I appreciate it, but I'm still not going to submit my work. And so I will say this, when they said a surprise performance, I was confused because I'm like, you have Diana Ross, Stevie Wonder, Beyonce, Taylor Swift, all these big names in today's music industry. I'm like, who do you bring out? And they kept saying surprise performance. And I know there was some teases of Sabrina and Chapel performing. I'm like, that'd be cool, but I can't see that as them hyping up like this, like iconic, a surprise coming up. So I'm like, okay, whatever. And so then they bring out Harvey J. Mason Jr., who is the CEO of the Grammys, of the Recording Academy, and he starts to talk about, in 2020 when he read the headlines. Now, let me say this. I'm
Mhm.
like, don't y'all dare bring his name into this just to slander him. So it was funny. I was texting my brother because we're both big fans of The Weeknd, but he was watching on Paramount, so he was 30 seconds behind I was. So the moment they said The Weeknd, I'm like, oh my God, The Weeknd. And then I'm like, no, I think they're just gonna, I'm like, I think they just better drag his name through the mud. And when he said, here are words I never thought I'd say again, and want to bring The Weeknd to this day, I screamed. Because The Weeknd, and also for those who don't know, he just came out with his new album last Friday, Hurry Up Tomorrow, which this is his final album as The Weeknd. Moving forward, he's going under Abel. So this is closing an entire era, an entire chapter in his music for him. So, I'll talk a little bit about that later with my hopes for next year's Grammys. But I mean, so good. His vocals are amazing, and I think this just goes to show, like, let's be, how do you get the Recording Academy to apologize to you and ask you to come back to the stage? That
Publicly.
has to show just how impactful of an artist you are to music and to pop culture as a whole.
Yeah, no, you hit it right on the mark. I mean, I am not a huge The Weeknd fan,
Hmm.
so I will start there. But I think, yeah, to get a moment like that, obviously in this type of historical Grammy night, where it's all obviously for a cause, and I think for them to also talk about these initiatives that they have started in this past like 4 years, uh, that also relates a little bit of like what's happening in the world right now and the need to be like, hey, we are making a difference. We are having these initiatives within our recording academy process. So I thought it was very special, and I thought that if anyone was going to make that movement, it was definitely going to be The Weeknd or Beyonce. But so I
Right.
was like, someone of that caliber can create that type of movement and change within something that we've known and loved for so many years, like a Grammys. So yeah, so I was excited to see him. The performance for me, I was like, all right, but I was like, I guess I could see where the fantasy is being sold. Like, so someone like Brittany, right? Brittany was into
Yeah.
it.
I will say this. I just watched his Jimmy Kimmel performance, and I'm like, did I just take pills? Like, his movement is definitely moving into that more like euphoric, like thriller kind of state, which I'm very excited to see. But the
Yeah.
performance was definitely indicative of that. So
We love you, Weekend. Thanks for coming back.
we love you. And so now we have the Quincy Jones tribute, which was phenomenal. I will say, when they said Cynthia Erivo, I'm like, oh, is she gonna do The Wizard and I
Mhm.
did not know it was for the tribute. I thought she was coming for Wicked, and I was like, okay, I guess. But what were your thoughts?
Yeah, no, same thing. I was like, at what point in the night is she gonna turn green? Because I was
Right.
like, I need to see this Defying Gravity live. But I will say, I think she was the best choice to start that tribute. I
Hmm.
mean, the vocals were on point. She was selling the fantasy to the artists. Like you could tell as they were panning to the people in the audience, like everyone was so into it. And I think, yeah, like she's just so incredible. Like such a great performer, entertainer. Vocals are on point. So I thought she was a great way to start it. And then for me in general, I thought the tribute in general had some standout moments. So I thought like someone when we saw like Stevie Wonder's incredible moment that he shared, especially with the harmonica as well, and that we got to kind of like follow along and everything. And then Janelle Monae was like the perfect seal to everything. Yeah, so I think it had its nice moments, and especially a tribute I think of that caliber for Quincy Jones was needed. So yeah, it was cute.
Yeah, Janelle Monae was, I have it right here, exceptional. Like, she was amazing. That amazing. So, yeah, as you mentioned, perfect way to end it. After that, we had Shakira. I love Shakira, don't get me wrong. But I feel like if you see one performance of her, you've seen them all. Honestly, after, like, especially after the Super Bowl and doing what she did at that magnitude, which is phenomenal. And let me preface with that. She's phenomenal every single time, but it's just the same thing every single time. So like, I'd like to see her come out the box with something different. I get it, girl. Those hips don't lie. You've been telling us since 2000s. We get it. But I just want to see something different. And again, for Dancing with the Stars fans, Koko Iwasaki was dancing. I literally spotted her right away. She was amazing. But yeah, I
Hey.
didn't like hate the performance. It was entertaining, but it was just something I'm like, okay, I feel like I've seen this a time or 20.
Yeah, it's so funny that you mentioned that too, because throughout the whole performance, I was like, "Oh wait, she did that at the Super Bowl. Oh wait, she did that move at the Super Bowl." And like, I was literally keeping count at one point. I'm like, "Wait, no, no, let me stop counting," because I'm like, it's supposed to be like a new performance in a sense.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I will say, like you mentioned, I think she is an icon in her own right. There were so many moments of Super Bowl moments, but also Jennifer Lopez gave her award that night. So I was like, a lot of things were like crossing paths for me, which I thought was interesting, but. Yeah, I'm like, I want to go see her on tour, but after I saw that, I was like, it's gonna be very, I feel like the same. So I don't know. Love her, but I was like, yeah, we need other factors to be added to this. But then after she performed, we finally made it to the end of the last performance, which was Charlie XCX, which turned the place upside down. She came from outside, walked inside. We saw thongs coming down. We saw Julia Fox was on stage
Mhm.
with her. And I think it was just a perfect way to end in general. I feel like, after you've been sitting in a award show for so many hours, yeah, you want to party. All these artists were gonna head to an after party regardless. So I feel like she was very entertaining. I did want to hear her song that made her famous, or not famous. I'm taking that back. The song that made her trending this past year on TikTok. Which
The Apple one, right? The
yeah,
dance.
it's with the little
Me
thingy.
too.
I'm
I
like,
was like, okay, but yeah, I definitely get where you're coming from with that. I will say, the one thing that they did show at the bottom of the screen, which was really cool, is that all the unworn undergarments are going to be donated to domestic violence organizations, which I think it's so important. Again, when you're, you know,
yeah.
at the end of the day in the music business, all these people have money. These people, especially that specific room of people. So to see them give back tonight with the flyer, and then I know other parts of the night were being donated towards other things. I think that's really, really important. But I loved her performance. I will say this: were you a part of Brat Summer?
I was not.
I wasn't either. I mean, like if the song came on, like I would listen to it and it's like, okay, it's cool, but I didn't like seek her music out. I will say this. The Charlie XCX I still know is like the boom clap girl from The Fault in Our Stars. So when this came on, I'm like, oh, what's this? I mean, it was good, but I just didn't seek it out.
Yeah, like I think in a different time we might have wanted a different closer for the award show. Someone
Yeah.
but yeah, but I definitely would say she made for a good way to end this year. But just like that moment, like we were talking about with purpose, obviously like what we saw the little banner on the side. There were so many standout moments of the award show in general. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, Brittany. What was one of the standout moments for you?
Oh, well, for one, of course, it was gonna be the weekend. Like, I think it was so funny after that. I'm like, okay, I'm not interested in anything else tonight. Like, that was insane. But if we get into the awards, which literally has social media on fire, like every other year, let's start with best rap album, which went to Alligator Bites Never Heal by Doechii. If I'm not mistaken, though, this isn't a full length album. This is an EP. I think they were on that they were like that she hasn't. I'm not 100% sure. But I think there was someone that I heard that was like, well, no, this is her EP. But regardless, to do that with an EP
Yeah.
and to be the third woman in over 30 years to win this award, like she said, it was Lauryn Hill, Cardi B, and now Doechii. I so good. Her speech was amazing. I know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, I think in general, I mean, she made history in a sense, adding to that incredible lineup of women who have won this award. Also, to be the only woman in her category to be nominated, like against all these other artists, obviously that we know and love that were male. I just was like, she's having a moment. But I do love, and I took so many notes of different little speeches that were happening throughout the night. But something that I thought that just was incredible, her message of sharing words for young black girls. She said something along the lines of, "You can do it. Anything is possible. Don't allow anybody to project any stereotypes on you that you can't be." Something like that. Yeah, we'll end it there. But I just think the messaging in general, she took that moment to obviously thank her mom, who was with her that night as well. And so a lot of things just, I feel like it's beautiful to see an artist, one, appreciate obviously the what she's receiving and who she's there with. And she also talked about obviously like God and like what she gave up and saying that, God said he would present this to her. So there were just so many spiritual moments there too. So she's definitely, it was beautiful, beautiful to see.
Yeah, and after her, we had best pop vocal album, which went to Miss Short and Sweet Sabrina Carpenter. I will say this: when the nominations came out, were there anybody who you said they were snubbed this year?
Nominations. Definitely, yes. I will say, I mean, just in general, I wanted my Camila Cabello girl to be nominated, which I think I was the only one. But yeah, I mean, I think in general, though, for her category,
Not just
sure.
her category, but any category.
Um, any category, maybe. Just can't recall right now, I guess I would say. But yeah, but how about you? Did you think anybody got a snub for their
Yes, I
nomination?
think Eternal Sunshine should have been album of the year.
Oh.
Maybe it's just me because that album got me through a damn breakup, but Eternal Sunshine, in my opinion, is one of Ariana Grande's better pieces of work. And just quickly, for those who don't know, Ariana Grande's, history with the Grammys. Back in 2019, just a few weeks before Thank You Next is about to drop, the Grammys happened, and she wanted to perform Seven Rings. They didn't allow her to do that, and they basically said, well, something along the lines, oh, she's too busy to perform, and so that's when she came out and said, I can pull a performance overnight. It's that you're trying to stifle my creativity. So ever since then, her relationship with the Recording Academy has been very, very rocky. She did come back the following year, in 2020, where she did the whole medley of Thank You Next, Imagine, Seven Rings. But then that was also the year where they teased her the most, and then Billie Eilish ended up sweeping all big four categories, and Ariana really didn't win anything. So ever since then, it hasn't been the best relationship. So I'm not surprised that Eternal Sunshine didn't get nominated for that reason, but I think it should have been. I mean, there's just so many. I mean, number one, we have We Can't Be Friends. That should
Yeah.
have been nominated for Song of the Year at least. Just so many amazing pieces of work off of that album that to see it really get snubbed was kind of disappointing. But when we get into Album of the Year, I mean, it was very much well deserved. So I'll leave it at that. Well, speaking of actually, coming up now, we have Best Country, which was Cowboy Carter from Beyonce. Duh. I, I'm sure you've seen on social media everybody getting upset with, oh, well, she's not a country artist. My thing is this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you don't necessarily have to be a country artist to make a country album. Like,
One.
everybody complained in the past 2 years that's like, we have nothing fresh in music, we have nothing innovative in music. Beyonce does just that, and now it's, well, she shouldn't have won because she's not a country singer. I'm confused on when the award was for Best Country Singer and not like Best Country Album. That's just to me a little confusing, especially when we have Post Malone, who I remember back when I was in high school was a rapper. Now all of a sudden he's a country artist and everybody's in love with him. So I don't want to say the quiet part out loud, but I think you can figure that
You're
out.
like, you could read the room right now.
Mm.
No, I think, yeah, I think what you're mentioning, even when I saw Post Malone in the category, I was like, oh wait, yeah, he made country music or country album, and I guess in this category as well. But I think to the haters, especially now, I think Beyonce's award speech was perfect because she did talk about, you are able to pursue all your passions. And I think she talked about stepping out of this genre box. And I think she did it effortlessly, perfectly. And along with her journey, she brought up other artists that, reintroduce, in a sense, other country artists to us that are in the space as well, and then maybe haven't gotten that shine. So I feel like if you're gonna make a statement, this was the way to do it. And she took her moment, her award speech, to also let people know, like, as artists, you should step out of your genre. So
100%. I will say the funniest thing is when, like, her shock when she got the award, and then you have Northwest
blue.
next to her, like, get up, BY.
Yeah.
She's like, get up. Like, that
Oh
was
yeah.
so funny to me.
Yes, all the memes this morning. I'm like, love
My
it.
God, so funny. And then next up we have Best New Artist, which was Chapel Roan. I said it this whole time. I'm like, if it's not Sabrina, it should be Chapel. And in her speech, she asked for livable wages and health care, and immediately she got a standing ovation.
Yep.
Like, I think that just goes to show once again that yes, there are strides being made in the industry, but we're not out of the woods yet. And that is something that continues. And she even said that when she was dropped from her label, she had nothing. And so where do you go from there? So I think that was very important. And I really, really hope that the people in the room took what she said in a positive way and are going to make those changes and not like, okay, well, now we're going to drop you. They
Yeah.
always say the whole best new artist curse and all of that kind of stuff. So I really, really do hope that. Then again, Chaperone has been very outspoken her entire career. Like, if we're looking at like this past year, so I really do hope that this doesn't penalize her in any way.
Yeah, and I thought it was very special that she had like her little diary or journal up with her. Like it just made it so personal. And it was beautiful to see her get the support of her peers. Like I
Mhm.
think they did pan to like Sabrina Carpenter, Cynthia
Yeah.
Erivo, like clapping for her. So I think it does make a statement, and that was the place to make that statement. So I hope that they do get to listen to her. Then obviously we moved on to Best Latin. Was it Latin album award? Maybe,
Yes.
right? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Best
Album.
Latin album. And of course, it was Shakira who was presented with the award by none other than J-Lo. And I thought that in itself, Shakira's moment up there was also very special. I think, like many artists, they took it as a moment to make a statement, share a message to the
Yeah.
communities, and she definitely did, like sharing something like she called it dedicated to her immigrant brothers and sisters, saying something to the lines of "I will always fight for you" as well. So I think obviously someone to that caliber who is so known in the Latino community to take a moment in a platform like that to say something to the Latinos, it was very special to hear for sure.
100%. And I didn't hear the full joke. I don't know if you did, but to my knowledge, there was a joke that Trevor Noah made in the beginning of the show. Well, number one, it was the one about Shakira, the best thing to come out of Colombia that wasn't a Class A felony, and then there was a joke about immigrants, and you
Yes,
saw
something.
Doechii get upset at the joke, which rightfully so. And as
Ah,
somebody who read Trevor Noah's book a while back, I do think that out of all people to not make that joke, it's him. But
mm,
at the end of the day, I will say I do like Trevor Noah as a host, but there were some jokes that I'm like, I think again with the state of where we're in this country, I don't think we need to start using different communities as punching bags. This is not the time to do so, you know?
yeah, definitely in that time and place, and yeah, I know what joke you're referring to. Something about like the people who voted for these winners today are the 13,000 or whatever uh,
Oh wow, okay.
record people, and then he was like in the 20 million illegal immigrants or something like that, and I was just like, ooh. I
Um,
mean, I joined Dochi in that eye roll. I just was like, yeah, it just didn't fit with the monologue in general. So I was like, don't try to squeeze it in there because it's a political moment or like a trending topic right now. Like I was just like, don't try to just plug it in there. So yeah,
right. Like he did the one about it's like, I don't know if I'm gonna be hosting next year. Fine, if you're gonna make fun of yourself, make fun of yourself. But again, with the time we're in, I don't think we need to be punching down at anybody. But you
yeah.
know, I feel like that's every award show. There's always a joke or two in there that's like, you didn't need to do that.
Mm.
But moving on to best pop duo was Die with a Smile. Beautiful song.
Woohoo.
I mean, it was very much well deserving. I'm not sure I heard about some of the other, like when I was watching the category, don't remember who. I know Taylor Swift and Gracie Abrams was in there, but I think just given the fact that it was going to Bruno and Lady Gaga, that was, yeah.
Yeah, hands down was like the song. I feel like maybe one of the only songs I've listened to completion.
Hmm.
So I can't even. Yeah, I was like, this definitely they definitely deserve it. And again, that moment was used by Lady Gaga to also make a
Hmm.
statement to share something of support. The queer community deserves to be lifted up. Music is love. She also acknowledged obviously our trans community with what we're seeing. And but Lady Gaga has always been that girl, I will say. To
100%.
speak to the community, especially to the queer community. So I didn't expect anything different. But yeah, I loved her being able to share a message in that time. And again, like I mentioned before, I want to see more music between her and Bruno Mars. And I hope her husband does not get jealous because he was like, he made sure to kiss her before she went on stage. She made sure to
But
thank him. But I was like, girl, no.
I know. I love that song. Bruno is friggin' amazing. I also want to see him do work with Silk Sonic again. Like,
Yes.
I need to see Silk Sonic again. But regardless, very much deserved award. You can't argue with this one at all. Then we move on to Record of the Year, which is Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar. And Jonathan, I know you heard that crowd when he got up to get that award. I
Yeah.
know you heard them singing along. And the moment I heard that, I'm like, the Super Bowl is going to be so interesting.
Yes. And I wonder how Drake is gonna feel watching the Super Bowl. Was my
Sounds like
big
what's going to
take.
happen now. Like,
Yeah.
just
I
going to a
mean,
bunker now.
yeah, you know what I thought was funny, or I don't know, I've been reading a little bit and I have to obviously double check and whatnot, but I guess to get our thoughts is I don't think a diss track has ever won
Hmm.
like these type of like record of the year or whatnot. I mean, Taylor Swift's songs about her ex probably have won, but I guess this one which was a diss track, to see it win, I'm just like, we clearly know now who won the battle, the beef
Oh,
between the
yeah.
rappers.
I mean, when the entire Grammy auditorium is singing and dancing to your diss track, we know who won.
Yeah,
Like, it's a clear winner.
yeah, and
Even
of
if we
course.
saw like Taylor Swift doing the little broom motion, I'm like, you know what, girl?
I was like, I needed to be seated in that table with Taylor Swift because Honey was dancing for every nomination speech, every anything she was just up and dancing, and I loved
That's
it for her.
that's one thing about her is like I remember 2 years ago when Bad Bunny did Después de la Playa and she was
Uh,
shimmying and she was getting down. I'm like, all right, girl, I see you. I'm gonna let you have your moment. I see you.
yeah, I'm like, she's a fun time.
She is.
Obviously, after that, I mean, it didn't end for Kendrick Lamar, but after Record of the Year, we did have the Dr. Dre Global Impact Award, which was received by Alicia Keys. So, what did you think of that?
So well deserved. I mean, I remember being like 6 years old in dance class and like no one is playing. And ever since then, she has just done amazing things in the music industry. Her music is powerful. I mean, listen, you're never gonna escape Empire State of Mind, first and foremost. We have Hell's Kitchen, which I haven't seen the full musical yet, but I've seen bits and pieces, and again, phenomenal. This was much, much well deserved, and I know, in her speech, she did mention because once again, in this country, quote unquote DEI is under attack, and so she used her platform to let people know that it is not a threat, but it is a gift, and I think that that is so important, especially with what happened last week, and now it's being pinned as a DEI tragedy, which is so disgusting. And so, again, just so glad for her.
Yeah, definitely. I think using that moment again to make a statement. But again, very well deserved, like you mentioned. If you haven't seen Hell's Kitchen, I did get to see it, and it is top tier. You just fall in love with her catalog of music one more time. Like I think it was such a good refresher of some of her classic songs, but some songs that maybe we didn't hear so much, but are just it was just beautiful all around. So I definitely recommend it to people. But obviously, following Alicia Keys' recognition, we went back to another previous winner for Song of the Year, "Not Like Us" by Kendrick Lamar. What did you think of that moment?
Again, like if I'm not mistaken, he got more Grammys for this song off air. Well, let's
Oh yeah.
start with this. There were 94 awards, only 9 were televised. So last night was a concert more than anything. But yes, so he got multiple awards for Not Like Us, which, if you look at the cultural impact of the song, anywhere you went, you were listening to that song. We had that song playing at my friend's housewarming party. Everybody in there knew the words. Anywhere you go, I was just at the club on Saturday. They were playing the song. Everybody knew the song. That song had just insane cultural impact. And I know there were other songs, I think Espresso was in this category. And there were,
So, yeah.
again, a long list of amazing songs. That's one thing with this year's Grammys, that it really felt like anybody could take any category.
Mhm.
But again, with the cultural impact of Not Like Us, well deserved.
Yeah, and it was beautiful to see him also dedicated to various cities in
Yes.
California, obviously, in LA as well. That raised him, like he said, in a sense, or like that he grew up
Hmm.
in. So I think it also made it special for the night that we were having,
Yeah.
honoring obviously the victims of the LA fires. With that, of course, album of the year was presented by very special people. What did you think about obviously the presentation and nonetheless the winner, Brittany?
Oh man, the presentation, I got choked up when they like brought them out. That was such a beautiful way to honor them, and just seeing everybody just jump to their feet, I think was such a well-deserved moment to give them their flowers. For I mean, they've been putting their lives on the line in LA, and it was just so important to give them that moment. I will say, everybody, the poor firewoman, when she said Cowboy Carter, did you see her clutch that envelope when she saw
Yeah.
who won? She said, "Oh," they're like, "Oh yeah, she's Beehive. She is
Hmm.
Beehive." I mean, again, for Cowboy Carter to win, and now I will say this. There are a lot of people back and forth that it's like, okay, well, maybe this wasn't the album for her to win, because she did get snubbed out of Album of the Year numerous times. For me, I always say she should have won for Renaissance. Um, I still think it was a very deserving album, though. I will say it was very deserving. The songs, the lyricism, the innovation. She
Yeah.
deserves Album of the Year. And there are so many people that's like, well, I haven't heard the song. Okay, well, why? You know what I'm saying? Again, your music, you're listening, it's based on your algorithm. It's based on what you are already listening to. So if it didn't come your way, then you just don't listen to that kind of music. But that doesn't mean that the songs were nowhere to be found.
100%, yeah. And I think it's beautiful that she used the moment to obviously thanked her daughter,
Hmm.
brought Blue as well up on stage with her. And then I saw an interview afterwards, and she was like that she forgot to thank Rumi because Rumi wasn't part of
Yes.
the album. So she was
Hmm.
like, shout out to Rumi as well. So yeah, I think very well deserved as well. And obviously, it comes at a time too where she is announcing her world tour or tour in
Yeah.
general. So I'm like, I mean, it's always going to be an exciting time for Beyonce and for the Beehive. So I think because she has gotten snubbed for this award before, I think it comes at a good time where this album has made some changes, has brought new people to also listen to Beyonce in a sense in a different genre that we haven't heard her before. So I think it was just the perfect combo for this one to be the win for her.
100%. And I will say, I do think that if it wasn't her, it should have been Billie Eilish. It was
Yeah.
between the two of them. As much as I love Sabrina Carpenter, I love Short and Sweet. That was not album of the year. It's a 30-minute album, not album of the year material. Love her in any other category, but album of the year, again, up against Cowboy Carter, Hit Me Hard and Soft, all these amazing albums. But I think Beyonce, it was just so well deserved. And I mean, all over my TikTok today, it's like, how did she win? How did she win? I will say this though. I did not think she was going to win, because I thought that, remember last year when Jay-Z got up and he gave his whole speech, I thought they were going to use that against her, because if we looked at last year's they interviewed members of the Recording Academy as well when it came to choosing album of the year, and there was somebody that when they came to Beyonce, they said, well, why do I chose not to vote for her because she has so many awards, why does she need more? Which that could spark a whole nother conversation, and this is why the weekend did what he did, and why they've had to make changes to the voting because of people like that. It shouldn't, because whether you're voting for it or against it, that means now you're voting based on popularity. And if we're going to make it a popularity contest, let it be a fan vote. So, in that, I was very shocked that she won, not because it was undeserving, but because I thought they were really going to hold that against her this year, and they didn't. They voted properly.
Yeah, it's really nice to see them. I mean, they reiterated it all night that the 13,000 electees or part of the board, whatever, made this decision. So it was nice to see that more people obviously get to share their experience with these albums, with these songs, and vote on it. But I am curious to see if it ever turns into like a fan vote in a sense, because especially for this type of caliber of award. But nonetheless,
Yeah.
I think the awardees were deserving last night, and
Hmm.
like you mentioned, there were over 90 categories. So there was this pre-show as well where a lot of other artists were recognized for their work. So I mean, everyone got their love, whether it was on camera or before the
Or
show.
off camera. They got the trophy and that's all that matters.
Yeah.
But let's just go through like a top three of fashion and performances and awards. What are your top three?
Ooh, okay. My top three fashion is definitely Sabrina Carpenter, Doechii, and I also we didn't really talk about her, but Heidi Klum. I thought she's not an artist per se, but she just I feel like brought it, looked really good, effortless glam. So I loved her. And then my performances, Doechii again, Sabrina Carpenter in there, and I'm gonna go with Chapel Roan. It's between her and then Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars. They were like up there for me.
Definitely.
Yeah. How
I'd
about
say
for you?
top three fashion for me is Sabrina Carpenter. I'm gonna say, I'm gonna say Olivia Rodrigo. That black dress looks stunning on her. And I'm gonna go with Doechii. She looked gorgeous, all outfits of the night. Performance wise, I'm gonna say Sabrina Carpenter, Doechii, Chaperone, but I gotta put her side by side with the weekend. I
Oh
can't like
Lord.
you don't just get to pop up on like you just don't get to pop up on us like that and then like give those vocals that amazing work. So
Fair.
definitely think those will be my top three four-ish.
Yeah.
Let's talk predictions for next year. Who do you think? Who are some albums, artists that we're gonna see next year?
You know, next year I do want to see the Wicked soundtrack be nominated or included in this award show somehow. I want to see Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo take that stage. That's definitely top of mine. My girl Camila Cabello for my harmonizers in Fifth Harmony. You know, I want her to get some love as well.
Mhm.
And aside from that, I mean, I think in general I would want to see Ariana Grande come back to this award. I feel like we did miss her. She was also nominated in certain categories, but I feel like if she does put out another album or if it's with Wicked, I would want to see her be more included. And then, although it's a lengthy award show, I will say yes, it was a good concert, and I do love that we got to see that and hear so much music. And I would love them to be able to keep with some philanthropic causes. I will say I do like the idea of being able to give back through music, and so for them to keep that in some capacity would be great. How about for you? What are you looking forward to next year?
Well, going on the topic of philanthropy, absolutely. I do know that last night was definitely more of a pressing cause. I know some people it definitely turned some people off that it was like before and after every commercial break and in the middle. So maybe just a little bit more subtle. But again, that's because next year, hopefully it'll be a cause that isn't as pressing as it is in LA right now.
Yeah.
In terms of who we're gonna see in music now because they made amends, I hope we're gonna see the weekend next year. But I do think it'll be cool to have like this final Grammy run as the weekend before he transitions over into Abel. I think that'll just be such a cool way of doing it. I hope we see Ariana next year. To me, that's like the one thing that could have made it better was Ariana Grande. One of my favorites. She's an amazing performer, and I think just having her perform amazing. I definitely want to see Bad Bunny.
Ooh.
I really hope Debbie Tiras Más Fotos is nominated as a Puerto Rican. That album literally returns back to the roots. Feel like I'm in Ponce. It is a stellar album. It's a very heartfelt album that I do think needs to be recognized, especially after Un Verano Sentí got snubbed. But
Ooh.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm never getting over that Grammys. But I think overall, like you said, again, to do more philanthropy and to really push it forward. I really do hope that they keep with that, and it's not just like, okay, well, this is done now, so like we're gonna go back to our old ways. So, really hope that happens, and I really hope that we just see, I maybe just that feeling of unity that was in the room, like when they sang "We Are the World," and it was like, wow, like we really need this. There was no better time for this. So definitely just more of that unity because like they said all night, music is really what helps bring people together. So I really just hope we start to see a lot more of that.
Yeah, and I'm like, last thing, Recording Academy, if you want to start the award show at like 2 p.m. Eastern time, or maybe even host it on a
Really.
Saturday, we wouldn't be mad at you. Because, child, on a Sunday to go to almost midnight,
Like people
yeah,
have to work
it
in the
was long.
morning.
Yeah. So,
That's my
um,
time.
But so many great moments, like we recapped, so many great fashion moments as well, performances, and just throughout the night, the artists using it for a good time and spotlight as well. So, yay, that was our Grammy recap, Brittany.
What a night. Oh my God, what a pilot episode. We like ran over an hour. I was like, oh, we'll probably like go for 30 minutes, but this was amazing.
Yeah,
Perfect
so
way to
much
kind
fun.
of kick off this project. We're so excited to continue bringing you guys more. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at PopofPopCulture. That's where we're going to be doing like all of our fun social media content. This is going to be going up on Spotify and on YouTube. So if you want to sit and listen to us yap for an hour and 10 minutes, go for it. Whether you're doing dishes, cleaning, doing whatever you got to do,
Mhm.
turn us on. But if not, we're gonna have some fun social media content for you guys coming up.
Yes, and don't forget to obviously interact with us. Give us your hot takes. Who were your favorite winners? What award show you also want to see us kind of cover? I know this was kind of like our trial to see, one of the award shows that we both enjoy, especially with music, fashion, and obviously the goal is to be able to do more. But if there's any award shows that are on your radar that you want us to cover, definitely drop it in the comments or DM us, and we will definitely check it out.
Bye.